All right. Well, welcome to You've Been Hit by the Motherload. I'm so happy to be with all of you tonight. We know that motherhood can be so joyful and so rewarding, and it can also be very overwhelming, especially when it feels like your identity and your definition of success have been redefined since becoming a mother. My name is Amy Galvin. I am a professional coach. I typically coach moms and working women to help them transform from feeling very overwhelmed to feeling much more supported and empowered in their motherhood experience. You can feel less overwhelmed and more empowered. How do I know this? Because I am a mom just like you who have experienced some of these same feelings that you are feeling right now, which is probably why you showed up tonight. And really, what it required is that it required me to stop playing the victim to my motherhood and start creating the motherhood experience that I truly wanted. And when I did that, I really began to thrive, as did my whole family. And tonight, I'm going to share a few ways with you of how I did it. We are going to talk about why you always feel like you're failing as a mom. We're going to talk about some ways to reclaim your identity. I'm going to take you through a couple of exercises to help you tap into your sense of self beyond your role as parent or partner or professional. And then we're going to talk about identifying your communication style and understanding how your communication impacts your ability to feel supported as a mom. So, some best practices for tonight. Let's be sure that your chat function is set to everyone so that, if you have a question or if you want to respond to something, we can all see it. It's great to do that, especially when we're off camera. This webinar is being recorded for playback. Responses will be recorded. I am going to send out a recording via email tomorrow morning. And then I just invite, since we're all here, close or minimize your web browsers or windows or even your phone. You've taken some time to be here tonight, and I really appreciate that. And you are focusing on yourself. So let's be here together, focused. All right. So jumping in my conversations with so many women, there are lots of common themes. We are overwhelmed by the demands of motherhood. We are struggling and juggling to keep it all together, especially if you are working outside the home. You might feel like you're failing, both at work and at home. And you have these feelings that you might be letting everyone down, including yourself. It's a tough place to be because before motherhood, probably did not feel this way all of the time. I think about the time before I was a mom, and I'm like, wow, life was so much easier. I had so much more time for myself. I really felt like I was thriving, both personally and professionally. And, I feel a little guilty having those feelings sometimes because I love my children. But the reality is there's nothing to feel guilty about because that's the truth. Life was easier. You were thriving because you really only had to worry about yourself. And you had way more time on your hands to spend on yourself, on your work, whatever was important to you at that time. Kids complicate things. It's a fact. One minute you feel like you have everything under control, and the next minute you might get a last-minute email from school that there's a music showcase tomorrow that you had no idea was happening. That happened to me just 2 weeks ago. Or maybe at work, you've been prepping for a really big presentation. You've been working with your team. You're presenting to a client. And of course, the day of the presentation, your kid wakes up sick, and now you got to scramble, and you feel like you might let your team down or your kid down or your client down. I call these moments getting hit by the mother load. It's the balancing act moms do. And just when we think we have it under control, boom, we are hit by the mother load. And this is my really simple way that I demonstrate this, but you've got mom, she's going along, and then something happens with her kid, something happens about her kid, something happens for her kid, and it's just super disruptive. And it's why we do feel like we're struggling and failing a lot. The other reason why you might be feeling this way is because of a bunch of things that I've listed here. So we feel this way because there's societal expectations and the way that media portrays moms. It's this like idealized image of the perfect mom who effortlessly balances and flows through her work and her family and her personal life, and rarely show the everyday struggles and challenges that moms face. And these create really unrealistic standards, and it makes us feel like we're falling short. In the age of social media, it's so easy for moms to compare themselves to other moms on Instagram who appear to have it all together. By the way, they do not, but it still, comes up and brings up these feelings of comparison, which leads us to feel inadequate. We also are bombarded with tons of advice from books and podcasts and influencers and family and friends. And all of this advice creates a lot of self-doubt and confusion. As moms, we're balancing many roles. We're juggling our being a parent and being a partner and being an employee and maybe being a daughter to our parents. And the pressure to excel in all of these areas of our life feels really overwhelming. We have mom guilt. We feel guilty about not spending enough time with our kids, or not spending enough time pursuing our own interests, or not being the perfect parent. And this weighs heavily on our self-esteem. We also suffer from perfectionism. We set impossibly high standards for ourselves, and perfectionism really sets us up for feelings of failure. We also might lack support in our lives from our partners or family or the community that we live in, or even our country to an extent. And this leads to feelings of isolation and the belief that we as moms are solely responsible for our children's well-being. And then, of course, our identity changes. After we become moms, it's completely redefined our role in our identity. And this transition to motherhood changes our sense of self, which is very disorienting. Which leads us to our first way that we are going to talk about shifting from being a victim to being empowered in our motherhood. So when I first saw this image a couple of years ago, I was blown away by it. It really resonated with me. I felt very, very seen because I realized that I was playing all of these parts in my life, and I had kind of neglected and forgotten the person, the woman underneath all of the roles that I play. And the real you resides underneath all of these layers and all of these labels that you've been given: mother, daughter, employee, caregiver. These are labels, but they're not the real you. And I want to talk a little bit about how our identity changes when we become a mom. And it starts with when your child is born. You might get a necklace, or you might be gifted a necklace that has your child's name on it. And it's such a sweet sentiment. It comes from such a well-intentioned place. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with it at all. But it is kind of symbolic of how our identity starts to strip away. And then, I have a name necklace that says Amy on it, but then I might put my daughter's names on, Mia's mom or Lana's mom, and then that becomes my identity and Amy gets lost underneath there. And look, I absolutely, I fiercely love my daughters. They are my why. They're why I'm here speaking to you tonight and doing this work, because I do want to break cycles for them. And I want to create a different world for them when and if they choose to become mothers themselves. But I also knew that something wasn't right in my life, and I had to go figure this out, and I had to become more empowered in my motherhood. So I went on this journey, and one of the first things that I did was reconnect to myself. And I had to learn how to prioritize myself again, and I had to learn how to nurture myself again, because it's so common to lose yourself after becoming a mom. And this loss of self happens because we have this pressure to prioritize our children's needs above our own. And this shift in our priorities really pushes our interests and dreams and desires and goals to the back burner. And then we become just consumed by the responsibilities of caregiving, which overshadow our roles and our identities. So, just for a couple of minutes here, we are going to do some self reflection and some exploration around your identity. I'm going to share a couple prompts with you, and I don't know if you have a pen or paper nearby, or you just want to think about these things, these questions that I'm going to be asking. But either way, it's all good. It's just a way to start thinking tonight. So the first prompt here is, who am I now? Describing yourself in the present. And I'll give just a minute as I read each of these. And the next question is, what do I like about this version of myself? And what do I not like? And then thinking about yourself in the past. Who did I used to be? And describing yourself. And who had I always imagined myself becoming? And in what ways have I stopped myself from becoming me? So obviously, this is a very deep exercise. And I know I ran through the questions quickly, and there's probably a lot that you could do if you wanted to sit down and journal on these. Probably could take an hour to journal on these questions alone. But, in the interest of time tonight, we will move on. However, I am going to send out the replay, so you are welcome to access these again. And if you are watching the replay, then you can press pause and you can noodle on these for a while. And really, my intention in sharing these is to start to open you up and to activate you and get you thinking about yourself, because you spend so much time thinking about everybody else in your life. All right, so we are going to move on to the next section, which is another step in shifting from victimhood to empowerment in your motherhood. And we're going to talk about creativity. Why? Because creativity equals being interested in your own life, which can combat burnout and bring back your life force. So, studies have shown that creative outlets that align with your values contribute to an upward spiral of positive emotions, psychological well being, and feelings of flourishing in life, which I know sounds amazing to be flourishing in life. So, when we say creativity, you can replace that word with passion. You can replace that word with interests or hobbies. I like to say creativity. It does not have to be something that is fine arts based or musical or anything like that. I'll share my example of what I do for my creative time, and it is not any of those things. But the point is that creativity is not optional. It's not a nice to have. It is essential and fundamental to your physical, emotional, and mental health as a mother, especially in these very challenging times in the world. Having an outlet that is not work or caretaking or the grind of adulting can be the key to becoming more engaged in your own life beyond who you are as a parent, a partner, or a professional. So I'm going to give you some examples of what creative time is not. Okay. So watching Netflix while also scrolling through your phone, that's decompressing. Having dinner with some girlfriends, that's so fun, but that's intimate relationships. Or taking a relaxing bath, that is self-care. And all three of those things are very important things to do for yourself, but they are not creativity. So when we talk about bringing more creativity into our lives, there are two challenges that typically come up. One is time, and two is what are you going to do? So first, let's talk about making time for creativity, because this is the first step, and this is where people get stuck because they're already so overwhelmed by everything that they have to do in their life that adding one more thing on top of it, especially one more thing that sounds like a little frivolous, can seem daunting. This is where, you might start to say things like, oh my God, I have less time than I've ever had before. How can I possibly make more time for something like this? You're crazy. I have no more minutes to give. Also, maybe you've tried something like this in the past and you have said, hey, everyone, I'm going to go off for like 30 minutes. You're all going to be great. See you later. You go up to your room. Maybe you're reading a book. And there's just constant knocking on the door and constant interruptions. Where did you put this? Or, hey, I need this. And by the time, you've helped everybody, those 30 minutes are up. And so doing something like this, you might be thinking, well, I always get interrupted, so there's no time to do anything like this. And here's what I'm going to say. Time is your most valuable currency. Time is so valuable. So why not preserve some for yourself? Permitting yourself to be unavailable for just a little while, like not even once a week, not even once a month, just every once in a while, and do something that you love feeds your soul. And it actually makes you a happier and healthier mom for everybody else. So, okay. So now we've talked a little bit about time, but maybe what's the thing, right? Are you somebody who gets like super nervous when you meet new people and you go around and you're like, have to share what you do for fun? Or maybe somebody says, oh, hey, what do you like to do for fun? You're meeting somebody new and you're like, I'm a mom. There's no, fun. What is that? I don't have any time to do anything fun. But I guarantee you that there probably is something that you're really yearning to do. And it's just about opening up to that. And here's the thing. When I first set out on this creative quest for myself, I had no ideas what to do at all. All I knew is that bringing some creativity into my life sounded really refreshing. So a place to start thinking about what to do is like, what makes you feel alive? And when was the last time you said, I can't believe I just did that. A sense of aliveness is a clue that you're doing something creative. And for me, that became ice skating. So I loved ice skating as a kid. I'd take lessons, I'd go to free skate with my friends. Even as an adult, I would take my kids ice skating. Yeah, Maggie loves that. Um, but I never thought about going by myself as an adult. Like that seemed crazy. Why would I do that? But kind of like what makes you go like, why would I do that? Or maybe something really like feels big to you, which this did, is also kind of a clue like, okay, that might be your thing. So I decided that I was going to go ice skating and I was going to do it in the middle of the day. I looked up at my local rink and they had some hours, for free skate at like 11 o'clock on a Tuesday. And so once I decided I was going to do this, I told people in my life. I told my family, I told some friends. I did this to keep myself accountable because I knew that if I didn't share this with people, then probably I wasn't going to do it. And of course, on the day of my skating adventure, I did it. I blocked out the time on my calendar and I had identified when I was going to go, but then it was time to go do the thing. And of course, that voice in my head kicked in and it started telling me all of the reasons that I should not go do this. It was saying very mean things like, you're going to look like an idiot, or you're going to fall down and you're going to hurt yourself. And it was trying to scare me out of not going. But again, I was like, nope, just going to take it one step at a time. So I, got in the car, I drove to the rink, I got out of the car, I walked into the rink, I rented a pair of skates, I put the skates on, I was going to get on the ice and I was like, I'm going to do this for 10 minutes, 15-minute tops. And then I can say I did it, check, I did it, and I'll go on my way. And 45 minutes later, I was still going. All I was doing was taking laps around that rink. There was a handful of other people there too. I put on my earpods, I listened to some 80s music, and I was just going around in a circle, but I was having the time of my life. I had the biggest smile on my face. I felt so great. And I was like, I can't believe I just did that after I did it. And it was really, really awesome. So let's think about what is your thing that you might want to do. I'm going to be quiet for a minute and let you kind of think about these prompts and see if anything comes up for you about what you might do for your creativity. And I don't know if anybody wants to share anything in the chat about, what's coming up for them, or if there's something that you're thinking about doing. Mhm. Yeah. Ooh, Tina, you use the word should. I like crafty stuff, but I always have other things I should be doing. Are those things the life things that you should be doing? Yeah. It's so easy to not make ourselves the priority. And it's okay. There's no like shame or judgment around any of it. It's so common. It's so normal. But that's why you're here tonight. And I mean, hopefully this is opening up something for you and giving you some awareness around it. And you've got 3 kids, you've got a very full life. And so you absolutely deserve to have some time for yourself. And it like doesn't have to be anything major either. But one of the things to think about is how can you take this a step further? What can you do maybe in the next week, 7 days to create some time and space to start exploring that? Yeah. And that's the thing, like our energy, our overwhelmed energy really leaks out and then everybody else gets affected by it. So sometimes we're like, oh no, I couldn't possibly like take the time to do it. And yet maybe if we like took the time to do it, it would help calm us down and it would give us that break that we need. And then the other people in our life would feel that way. That has been my 100% experience with my own family. When I'm agitated, when I'm super stressed, when I'm not my best self, then everybody else in this house is like that too. When I take a moment to be, nurturing and care for myself, I can come back into the day. I can get hit by the motherload a little bit more, and be able to take those hits. But when we are taking those motherload hits constantly, we do need to step away and take care of ourselves. So thank you for sharing all of that, Tina. And we are going to move on to the next part, which is one of my favorite things to talk about. And that is communication. Oh, I was saying I couldn't do it. Yeah, and that's surgery. Yeah. Yeah, that's surgery. So like that's like not creative time. That's like physical wellness. Well, good luck with your surgery. Okay, so in our last section tonight, we are going to explore our individual communication styles and how it impacts our ability to feel supported as moms. Communication is the key, everyone. We've heard this before, right? It is so important to us, both as individuals and mothers, and how we communicate impacts so much, and it shapes our motherhood experience. So effective communication is a vital tool on our journey from feeling overwhelmed to empowered in motherhood. Evaluating and evolving our communication style can help you navigate motherhood with greater confidence. It can help set the boundaries that honor your needs, and it also helps us build strong and supportive relationships. Your voice and the way you communicate absolutely matter. They're so important to creating that empowered motherhood experience. And if we're being really honest, and this is a safe space to be honest, we're probably asking for help in tones and at times that do not invite in the support we really need. And when we're unsure that we're going to receive the helping hand that we need, we will communicate in extremes to try to control the outcome that we want. But the reality is that we don't invite in the people to take the inspired action to help us. So I'm going to share a few common unsupportive communication styles. We're going to review them together and, just see which one or two might resonate with you. So we've got the long-winded, you're talking and no one's listening or no one's responding because you're still talking. You might have those sharp commands. You're a drill sergeant and your delivery is not super popular with your troops. Maybe you have bad timing. You drop your grievances and requests for help into the conversation at those inopportune moments. Your husband or your partner might buy you some flowers. Thanks for the flowers, honey, but you did forget the dishwashing detergent. So go back to the store. It's going to close at 10. We need it. You might have toxic word choices. I wasn't going to say anything, but I really hate it when you do this, or next time you really need to do it this way. Maybe you're a verbal assassin. Maybe you say some mean things, but you say them in really kind and in a measured tone. Are you potentially all or nothing? You never replace the toilet paper, or you always leave the seat up. Perhaps you like to bring up the past. This is just like the last time you forgot to do that. You might boil over. I wasn't going to say anything. I didn't say anything. And now I'm really angry. Maybe you've already boiled over. That's it. I'm out. Maybe you avoid it altogether. Why bother asking? Just going to say no anyways, or just going to try to talk me out of it anyways. So I'm just going to do what I want. Or there's always just the flat out dismissal, the no. When I first did this exercise, I really leaned into I leaned into that all or nothing style. There were definitely some others that I would sprinkle in here or there, but my communication style was definitely all or nothing. And I will share how that usually came out in my house. So something that was a very common occurrence is that I would ask my husband, Aaron, to replace the paper towels in our kitchen. So we have the paper towel holder that sits on top of our counter, and then we keep the paper towels in our garage. So for some reason, in my head, I had assigned him the task of being the one who would go to the garage and who would get the new roll of paper towels. So I would ask him to do that, and he would do it. He would oblige me. But here's how this would go. He would go get the new roll, and then he would set it on top of the counter, still wrapped in the plastic, and he would put it next to the paper towel holder that had the empty tube on it. He wouldn't change it out. He would just place it next to the paper towel holder. And this would infuriate me. I mean, so angry. And I would say things like, you never fully replace the paper towel holder. And he would be so confused. He would be like, I went and got the paper towels. You asked me to do that. Like I did it. I don't understand where I went wrong. And the way that I would communicate to him, like, quite honestly, did not make him feel like helping me, I'm sure. And usually when we're not using our best style of communication, it's, I've been waiting 2 months to get the toilet seat fixed. Yes, exactly. Hold on. Well, I want to read this, but when we're communicating, we're not using our best style of communication because our emotions are really high. And when our emotions are really high and our cognition is low, it does not make for a good conversation. So once I knew this tip, I waited until I had calmed down. I knew this thing was going to happen again because it happened all the time, probably once a week, if I'm being honest. And when it happened, I let it happen. I got angry, but not at him. I sat with my feelings and I really searched, like, why do I feel this way about this? And what it really came down to is that him not replacing the paper towels, him not finishing the job, was sending me this message. He didn't mean to, but I certainly was getting sent the message that, like, my time was not as valuable as his. And that, like, sure, he could go get the paper towels, but he couldn't finish the job. It was on me to finish the job. And it kind of felt like he didn't respect me. And I know that's not true, but that was what his actions were sending me. And so when I had that conversation with him, I didn't say, you always do this. I waited until I was calm and I sat down with him and I explained this to him. And I said, this is how your actions are making me feel. And he got it 100%. And of course, that wasn't what he was trying to say at all. He thought he was, he said, you asked me to get the towels out of the garage. So I did, it was just this misalignment between us. And once we had that conversation and it was very calm and it was very human centered and heart centered, he understood where he was falling short. And I understood how I needed to express things in a way that actually would get him to help me. And as I worked on my communication style, I began to see how it empowered me to get the help that I needed. And the first step in any transformation is awareness. And now that you have some awareness around this, maybe start to observe how you're communicating with others in your life, particularly if you have a partner, and where you can evolve your communication style to help you get the help that you desire and that you absolutely deserve. Yes, being the one everyone depends on can be very, very overwhelming. The other part of this story is that now it's not on me also to tell him when we are out of paper towels. So what we do in my house is we subscribe to a methodology called the fair play method. And it is a method that helps you bring some equity into running your home with your partner, because it should not be on you to do everything. And that was something else that I was experiencing in my home. And it was crazy, because here's the thing, my husband and I started a business together. And so we would go to work and we were like 50-50 partners at work. And then we would come home and I would do everything at home. And I was like, how is this a thing? I don't understand what's going on here. So that's how a lot of my journey started. Was I would go to work, I would have this equity at work with my husband, and then we would come home and I would do everything. And I knew he was super capable because we ran a company together. But like, how was he not capable of applying those same skills to the home? And how did we both have this job where we were running this business, but we would come home and all of this would be on me when we got home? So it was very, very confusing. It was very hard for me to reconcile. And that's also how I started a lot of this work, is that it was just so in front of my face. So fair play is a system that we use. And actually, I am a trained fair play facilitator. So I had implemented it in my own home. And then I, as a professional coach, I got certified in fair play. And now that is a modality that I offer inside of my coaching program. And this is, everything that you are putting in the chat, all of you, like, this is why I do this. And so to get back to the paper towels, because of fair play, now it's not on me to be like, hey buddy, the towels are out, can you go get some? Now we have an understanding that he actually owns that chore outright. And he has to do that without me reminding him. And we have some things that we've put in place called the minimum standard of care, which, is part of fair play. And that's also me letting go of some things and him being able to own things outright. So this morning, I'll tell you, came downstairs, one of our kids had used the last paper towel and he saw that the roll was empty. He went out to the garage, he got the paper towels, he brought them in, he unwrapped them, took off the old roll, put them on the paper towel holder. And I know I've talked a lot about paper towels, but like, that's the nitty gritty stuff that goes into running a house. It's all these little chores, and there's so much humanity underneath these chores in the home. So that is a lot about fair play. But here's what I will say. I will say that I know sometimes we think that it is all on us. I know sometimes we think it would be easier to do it ourselves, but I assure you, you will not get out of the failure cycle if you don't get help. And it is possible to get that help. It does come down to communication and, some things that you have to unlearn about yourself. And I know that that feels probably really big to hear, is because you're just like, why can't they just help me? I don't understand it. But it has to do with a lot about us and a lot of things that we've internalized as women and mothers, and a lot of things that we've taken on because society, has put that on us, or that's, what we grew up with and that's been modeled for us our whole life. But we don't have to do that. And there are ways to get out of it, because you cannot do it all, and you should not do it all. So hold on, I just want to take a moment and read a little bit about what you all were saying. Yeah. Oh, so, oh my goodness, your knees. Yes. I think so, because I'm in the house. I'm sitting around eating bonbons and I can do whatever I want all day. I've tried telling Mike feel unappreciated. Yeah. Yeah, I would say that everybody is capable of processing all of this. It's just a matter of, communicating with each other. And so what are some of the ways that you've, taken these things on? As I've said, we internalize a lot of this. And again, it's kind of naming it and having conversations around it. So what I highly, highly recommend watching, if you have not already, I do highly recommend. So Fair Play, it's a book, but also last year they came out with a documentary, and it is fantastic. And it's a really, really good piece of content to actually sit down with your husband and watch it together. And then I'm happy to send you a discussion. It's on Hulu, and really like anywhere where you can stream. So I know right now it's definitely on Hulu. It probably is on Amazon as well. But make a date with your husband, invite him to watch it with you. It does not shame men or blame them at all. It's very, very well done, and it helps to open up that conversation. And then I am happy to send you also the discussion guide questions that you can talk about with and use as like thought starters to have conversations with your partner. So my husband and I, we've been doing this work since like 2019 together. It's not a perfect practice by any means. You are so welcome, Tina. It's not a perfect practice at all. We slide backwards sometimes and have to, revisit some of these things and recheck in on some of it. But when we watched the documentary, even though we were so familiar with the content already, when we watched it together last summer, it, again, just opened up some new things for us to talk about, some new layers to peel away. All right, so we are at 46 here. Does anyone have any questions about anything? Okay, that's all good. We had some good chat. Okay, so let's talk about continuing after tonight's journey, because it seems like some things have really opened up for you, which is beautiful. And that is such a great step. And this is why I hold these webinars and have these conversations, because I want to empower you all in your motherhood. It's fair play. When I send out the fair play documentary, when I send out the replay, I will make a note about that in there. Just going to write that down. Okay. So after tonight, there are some things that you can do to keep going here. So of course, like first, I am going to send out the replay of tonight's webinar so that you can rewatch it if you want to grab those journal prompts again. obviously that will be in there, and anything else that you want to hear again, you'll have access to it. The other thing is, in order to get to a state of more empowered motherhood, you have to do the work. And you're doing it right now. You're here. You showed up to this. If you're watching the replay, you're listening to this. So you're already doing it. But let's do more, right? So what I am offering everyone here is a free 60-minute coaching session with me to go deeper after tonight. So during this 1 hour session, we can do a lot. We can create some of those actionable steps to help you reclaim your identity beyond your role as a mom. And it did sound like, based on the chat, that some of you had some thoughts about, I want to do something. I'm not exactly sure how to make that happen. So that is something that we can talk about in that session. Maybe, we can identify some areas where you can take a little bit more control so that you can feel less failure in your motherhood. And then, tuning into your communication style to start getting the support that you deserve as a mom. And really, like, my goal is, by the end of this coaching session, you leave with a renewed sense of self-empowerment in your motherhood, and that you feel that there's a possibility for transformation in your life that will have such great impact on you and your family. It's 60 minutes and it is absolutely free. And I will send the link out in the replay email for how you can claim and schedule your session with me. So, just a little bit more before we end tonight. But again, I'm Amy Galvin. I offer one-on-one coaching and mentoring to women, particularly mothers. I do offer group coaching every once in a while. You are now on my email list. So should I offer a group coaching program, you'll get information about that. I also do corporate workshops. So if you would like to bring some of this content to your workplace, I love doing that. I love working with companies that support their caregiving employees, and love sharing some of this information, especially in a corporate setting. And then you can connect with me on Instagram and LinkedIn. I'm very active in both of those platforms. And then I also have a podcast. So I have a podcast called Mom Sanity. We're actually in season 3 right now, right in the middle of it. And you can listen to the podcast on Apple or Spotify, or really anywhere else where you like to stream your podcasts. And, the content is this kind of stuff, are these kinds of topics. And we've got great guests who share about their empowered motherhood as well. So I just want to say thank you for being here. Thank you for being so active in the chat. I loved it. And I really hope that you all take advantage of your free coaching session and have a great rest of your evening. Thank you so much.